Ready.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first meeting, Ruby Hill Neighbors meeting of the new year, 2022. I'm newly elected as president. This is my first meeting. Very exciting. I'm actually broadcasting here from Ruby Hill Neighbors' new headquarters at Community Ministry, which is located in the southwest corner of Zunai in Mexico. So very exciting. And yeah, we'll just start with intros of the leadership team. I'll go around and then from there we'll hand it off to Jackie, and she'll facilitate the meeting, and we'll move forward. So yeah, I'll introduce Jackie and Brandy first, our awesome, amazing past presidents. And then I believe we got someone coming in. And then we have Ken, our treasurer. And then Tiffany, our communications director. And I guess as I'm introducing the leadership team, I will make it, I'll note that we do have vacancies, and we're looking for more leadership. We have a vacancy with vice president and then with membership secretary. And then we're always looking for community liaisons. So yeah, I guess from there we'll hand it off to Jackie and start with the agenda.
Awesome, great. And you read my mind as far as we should have a plea for some other leadership for our open position. So I'm glad you got that. That's awesome. Real quick, I am actually going to be reporting on our District 4, our Officer Chavez, who is usually our community resource officer, who typically presents, is actually attending another neighborhood meeting tonight. But he did send along his information to the neighborhood crew just to make sure that we had the stats, as well as his contact information. So I'm actually going to put his contact information in the chat. So if you have any follow-up questions or any other specifics around these stats, he is always very responsive and happy to talk to anyone in the community, but I might not have answers to any questions that might come up. So he did send along the stats for several different areas of the crime stats that he typically covers. Burglary, and I believe this is from January of 2021. So over the last year, January to January, burglary is up about 1.8%. It was an increase of 1 incident from 56 to 57. Larceny is an increase of 16.7%. It is an increase from 60 to 70 incidents. Theft from motor vehicle is an increase of 19.6%. That is 97 incidents to 116 incidents, so an increase of 19. And then motor vehicle theft has an increase of 28.2%, and that is 110 incidents versus 141 incidents, an increase of 31. And just knowing what these stats are saying, and having seen Officer Chavez present many times before, I can hear him say, make sure that you are locking your vehicles, that puffing or warming your car up in the driveway prior to your commute is actually illegal in Denver, and also where a lot of these thefts come from. So make sure you're not doing that you're setting yourself up for success. And what we talked about at our last meeting around keeping lights on in your house overnight, all of those different things as you deem appropriate, just setting yourself up for success. And again, if you do have any follow-up questions, if there's a specific incident or something that you need clarified, his email is jerami.chavez at denvergov.org. In the chat, his desk number is 720-913-0276, and his cell phone number is 720-584-7239, which I do know we have several of our residents who do text him on a regular basis with questions and clarifying issues as well. So that is the information regarding our crime stats. And apologies from Officer Chavez that he couldn't make it tonight, but wanted to make sure we had that information. So after that brief conversation, I am going to pass it over to Maggie with Councilman Clark's Lucky District 7's office.
Hey guys, good to see everybody. Just a few quick updates from our office. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Maggie. I work for Councilman Clark, who is your District 7 council person. I am going to also add my email address to the chat here so that you can reach out to me with any questions or things that come up that maybe you don't want to bring up in front of everybody, or I think of later and think, I should have asked. And I'm going to turn my camera off because I think my internet is unstable. Sorry. Yeah, so reach out to me anytime. I joked in a meeting earlier today that if I come to your monthly meeting and you ask me about something that was a problem 3 weeks ago, I'm going to scold you for it because you should have emailed me 3 weeks ago and we could have had it all solved by now. So just that little reminder to people to reach out anytime. Few things. Sorry, typing and talking is not one of my strong points. There we go. So just a couple of things that I've been giving updates on at our meetings. I'm sure, especially this group knows, but new solid waste routes for 2021. If you haven't already checked online and found out when your new day is, you can do that at the Denver website. And just a reminder, if your neighbors are freaking out because their waste didn't get picked up this week, we're on a 1-day delay this week because of the Martin Luther King holiday yesterday. So it happens every time there's a holiday. It cracks me up. So the other thing that I'm going to put in the chat real quick is a link to some upcoming meetings about equity and rezoning. There's an equity and rezoning task force that's been put together by Community Planning and Development. There are several members. You can link to the list from this link that I'm giving you here. It's a really interesting prospect. How do we make the process of rezoning more equitable? How do we make the process of people speaking up about rezonings in their community more equitable? There are some members on that task force from Athmar Park, so the West Side is represented, and then some other folks in District 1 and District 3, so that's really good to hear. I didn't make it to the first meeting, but I am planning on watching it. It's should be posted soon, so I just recommend keeping an eye out for that. And then a couple other quick things. Our office heard from the community that folks were really interested in having access to some equipment when you guys do events in the community, and especially now in these COVID days, we're doing a lot more outdoor events. So our office has invested in a tent, some tables, a couple of PA systems. One's really good for inside, one's really good for outside, microphones, that kind of stuff. You can play some jams, you can make announcements. So as you guys start to put together any events that you have for 2022, we will have a link on our website to a request form that you can fill out, and then send someone down to our office to pick up that equipment and drop it back off again. But just keep that in mind as you're planning for this year. And then along those same lines, we have been working with DPD. I probably don't have to tell this group that there are a lot of bike thefts happening in the city over the last few years, and that's grown considerably. And one of the problems is folks don't have their bikes registered or any proof of ownership for their Sorry about that. I get muted for a second there. bike, and that causes a series of problems. One, the police can't arrest someone with a bike that the person says is theirs unless you can prove that it's yours. We can't get it back to you, so it ends up in the impound and then goes up for auction. And third, there's no way for you to prove that it's yours potentially if it is found or retrieved with your other belongings. So what we're doing is hosting some events out in the community to help get bikes registered. And so I would love to work with you guys on any events that you're going to be doing that we could send out those registration kits for you guys to get your neighbors registered. Or if you guys have any cool ideas about places where we could catch a bunch of people on bikes, whether it's whether you maybe it's Love at Pavilion concerts or something like that, where we could be to just encourage more people to register their bikes and get that information into this new database that DPD is going to be working with, that not only will be able to track it if it's found in Denver, but could track it if it gets picked up in Salt Lake City or something like that. So it's it's actually an international database from a company out of Vancouver, British Columbia. So should be really a cool effort. I'm already seeing some great ideas come through down at the bike park. I really do think we'll try to do something at Levitt this year. And then again, any events that you guys have, we can send you a stack of these little packets that you can send home with people. And then our hope would be when we're there for an event that we have some iPads and some hotspots and people can do it as we're there and get it done, so there's no forgetting to do it when you get home. Because if you're like me, it gets stuffed in a bag. That is, I think, the majority of what I've got here. Let me just check my list for one more thing. The last thing is, as you guys know, we have been in the process of hiring a new staff person to represent the West Side. We're hopefully starting to narrow that process down, and we'll hopefully have someone to introduce to you next month. So cross your fingers that that works out and that we're back fully staffed here at District 7. And you guys, West Side person before too long. I know we got a lot on the agenda tonight. So like I said, email me anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Maggie. We do have time for a couple questions in case anyone has any questions, but I do appreciate the ideas with Denver Days events, and especially, the tips on registering your bikes are huge. And I have a personal story from a friend that had a story about their bike being stolen. So that is a very, very good idea and awesome resource. So I'm glad that you brought that up tonight. Good to know. I'm excited for that. So anything else? Questions? Also, I didn't mention this at the beginning. If you do have questions, you can feel free to type it into the chat, which is at the bottom of your screen, right in the middle. Or you can also unmute if you did have a question that you wanted to speak to the crowd. But also, as Maggie mentioned, she put her email in. There's tons of ways to connect with Councilman Clark's office with any of those follow-ups. But if there is anything that you are needing, feel free to ask now, or we can definitely connect in the near future.
Jackie, I have a quick question for Maggie.
Go for it.
So Maggie, I saw some worker type folk on the east side of the golf course today, the Overland Golf Course today, and was wondering if there is any action going on in that arena, because that's my first time seeing anyone do anything right there.
You're hilarious. So I got pictures from Terry Pasqua, who lives there along the golf course, asking if that's what was going on too. So I think so. We are confirming to make sure. But for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, if you've ever had to walk along Santa Fe on the east side of the Overland Golf Course on what I call the horrible sidewalk of doom, it's terrible and death-defying, and there's concrete trucks going past you at 65 miles an hour. And in the future, you will actually be able to go on the other side of the berm there in the golf course, and there will be a nice, lovely, bucolic bicycle and pedestrian path, much more similar to what's on the west side. of the golf course along the South Platte River Trail. So hopefully that is starting now. I mean, the timeline matches up. It should be starting soon. So there were trucks out there. There's like a mobile pod thing out there. So hopefully they're starting their groundwork to get that going. And by, who knows, maybe by this summer, we'll be able to not have to ride on the evil sidewalk of doom.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Brandy, you actually
Great
sparked a
question,
question for me too. And Maggie, I know this might be part of transportation more so, but in the similar vein along Florida, there has been construction being done with medians and hopefully a more pedestrian friendly crossing option for Florida. Do you have any insight on that?
I don't off the top of my head. I think the last thing that I checked in on is go put your brain in the Wayback Machine and remember back to Grandoozy days when we set aside that chunk of funding to make the bridge over the South Platte River a little bit better for bicycles. I haven't heard an answer on that, but I'll send around some feelers for that and send you guys an update as soon as I get one.
Awesome. Yes. And I do know there was part of that with the Sanderson Gulch renovation, and it does seem to be right in line with that area, especially on the south side of the Sanderson Gulch. So very exciting to have some more pedestrian friendly options for Florida as well. So I would appreciate that. Yeah.
And I just got a question from Sharona in the comments here. So I'll just, if we have a second, I'll just address that too. So a couple of things. Sharona is asking about construction at the former gate site, so the Mississippi, Broadway, Santa Fe station area there. So you guys have probably seen all the construction happening to build the new Kentucky Auto Bridge, which is also going to have an adjacent bicycle and pedestrian bridge associated with it. Right now, it seems like a bridge to nowhere because they haven't started any of the above ground construction on the actual site. But my understanding is that they are about to start the first building construction, and their plan is actually to start from the corner of Broadway and Mississippi and work their way back to that corner where like the Santa Fe and I-25 nook is. So hopefully we'll see something coming out of the ground there sooner than later. But I think that bridge is the most exciting part of it, that before too long we will have another good way to get over into the other half of town and across the Grand Canyon that is the middle of District 7.
Awesome. Lots of exciting things happening in the neighborhood. So appreciate your insight from your side of things as well. All right.
And actually, I don't know an answer to your question, but I will get one and send it over.
Absolutely. Either way, exciting things are happening. So the construction at Broadway and Evans, any insight on that? I saw that Sharona just mentioned that.
I'm trying to picture it in my head. I don't, because also, is it road construction or is it, the EMW building, that's what it is. So that used to be the EMW carpet building. So you guys may have actually met some of the folks from there during the Grandoozy project. That is my understanding is that is a residential building with ground floor retail that's going in. I can't remember if it's 5 stories or not.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've seen that project. Jolan keeps popping on here. I feel like he remembers more than I do about it. So
it's 5, but it steps back because it's on. Hi, everybody. Still have my council meeting got done early, and through the magic of Zoom, it looks like I'm all official when I'm really just in my basement. 5 stories, but it steps down as it heads towards Lincoln because they're single family homes, so it's a protected district. So it'll seem more like 3 on the Lincoln side and 5 on the Broadway side, but it's one big structure that's residential.
Awesome.
Thanks for that, Jolan. Appreciate the assist there. And so unless anyone else has any questions, I'm going to mute myself because there's some baby screaming happening in the background here. And I'll jump in if anything else comes up, but I'm excited to hang out for the rest of the meeting and hear the presentation.
Yes, awesome, and perfect segue. So with that, I am actually just going to direct it right over to Tay to introduce this potential new project, this potential waste management option with the city. So Tay, feel free to take it over.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for having us. My name is Tay Dunkley, and I'm with Denver's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency. And I'm joined here with a few colleagues, including Jessica Lally from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. Jessica just waved, and I'm going to queue up my presentation. I've got some slides to share this evening. Just give me one moment. All right. And hopefully you all can see my presentation mode slides. Fantastic. So we are here to talk about a proposal that would improve the waste hauling service the city provides for residents and also begins charging a fee for that service. So this has been something that's been talked about for a long time, and we're finally getting close to having an ordinance ready for City Council's consideration. So tonight we would like to just tell you about it and hear your ideas for how to make it work for your family. And technical difficulties here. All right, so this presentation should take about 10 minutes and then we'll have lots of time for discussion. We'll review how our waste service currently works and operates, how the issue is connected to climate change, and then how this new program would work. So the city and county of Denver collects trash for around 180,000 households, which is about 60% of our residents. We provide this service to all single family homes and small apartment buildings up to 7 units. And the agency that performs the service is the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, or what we call DOTI. The rest of the city's residents and all businesses have to contract with the private companies for their trash services.
Okay, if I eat last night's leftovers.
In the conversation today, we are only talking about the city's customers, those 180,000 residents in single family homes and small apartment buildings. Our service is paid through the city's general fund, which is where all of our property taxes and sales taxes go to fund the services and programs offered by the city and county of Denver. Everyone pays into this general fund, even visitors. We do not charge our customers for trash recycling, but as many of you well know, we offer compost to customers, but they do have to pay $10 a month for that service. And I'm getting a comment that there's a bit of a slowdown, so I'm going to take myself off video, and hopefully that helps a little bit. Can people hear me okay still?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, hopefully the lag isn't too bad. So 75% of our waste currently goes straight to landfill, and you'll hear us talk about the diversion rates a lot. That number just combines recycling plus the amount of compostable waste that we're not sending to the landfill, and that's why it's called diversion. So on the flip side, Denver's combined recycling and composting rate is 26%, which is below the national average, and it has only grown 1 to 2% each year for the last 20 years. So at that rate, it would take us another 25 years to get to a 50% diversion rate. All right, so when it comes to climate change, those landfill emissions that we're talking about really do matter. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas that is created as waste decomposes in the landfill without the presence of oxygen. So methane actually does more damage to the atmosphere than carbon dioxide, but it also leaves the atmosphere much faster than carbon dioxide. So as the quote here states, you can stop emitting all sources of methane if we can stop emitting all sources of methane as soon as possible, it will make a very noticeable improvement within our lifetimes. And as a reminder for why we're doing this work, poor air quality right here in Denver and the negative impacts of climate change, such as extreme heat, hurt the people and places we love so much. Specifically, Denver's climate efforts are centered on equity. The Latino and Black communities in Denver and our children are the most burdened by climate change, and we must do more and do what it takes to improve our environment so that they can have a higher quality of life. The blue sections on this map shown here indicate the communities with lower access to healthcare, lower access to healthy food and parks, higher rates of poverty, increased vulnerability to heat extremes, and other quality of life indicators in the city that we are working to improve. So many people in Denver have been trying to reduce the amount of waste we send to the landfill for a very long time. This is not a new conversation. We have done all that we can to increase our recycling and encourage our customers to compost through education and outreach. But over the years, the one solution that keeps coming up is moving to a fee-based system. So just to kind of breeze through this timeline, recycling, as some may remember, was introduced back in the early 1990s, and now as of today, 96% of our customers have recycling carts, which is a pretty big accomplishment. We started offering composting over 10 years ago, and that has proved to be really popular as well. We now have more than 30,000 customers using the compost services, which is about roughly 20% of the 180,000 that are eligible for that service. But not much has changed over the last 10 years, and a number of our resident-led advisory councils have all recommended that we move to a fee-based system to reduce food waste, increase recycling, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because we've seen it work in lots of other cities around the country. Cities like the ones that we see here. There's a number of cities across the US where this is already working well. Some of the cities on this map have recycling and composting rates that are 2 or 3 times as high as Denver's compost and recycling rate. The one thing they all have in common is a fee for hauling trash while providing recycling and composting for free. So hopefully that kind of sets the foundation, and we want to dive right into talking about the proposal and how a fee for trash service would work here in Denver. If we are able to move to a fee-based service, it is important to know that by state law, the fee can only cover what it costs the city to operate the waste hauling service. This list on here shows what would be included in that cost of service, and every service that we offer now is included, along with 2 really major changes. Those changes you might be able to pick out already are 1, weekly recycling, and 2, composting for all customers. So these would be huge changes for Denver, but we have heard loud and clear from our customers that this is what they want. No more overflowing recycling carts or having to put some recycling in your trash cans. And as for some of the nuts and bolts, here's how the program would work. First, our customers would get to choose the size of trash cart they would want, small, medium, or large, as you can see. The service fee would vary by the size of the trash cart. A small cart gets the lowest fee, and the largest cart charges the highest fee, as you can read here. Recycling and composting carts will be available in the same sizes. And since we know space is an issue, the smallest carts take up the least amount of space. So we encourage people to play with that. And we need every customer to pay a base fee to keep the trucks running by each house and taking the trash away. So the cost difference between the cart sizes will encourage customers to choose the smallest cart and maximize use of the recycling and compost cart that they're also receiving. So composting will be available to all customers at no additional charge. And since we know this may be hard for low income and fixed income neighbors, we are going to offer an instant rebate to reduce their bill. And the eligibility will be based on income and household size. And that's what the area median income, or AMI, table refers to. That way, big households who may really need a large garbage or trash cart can get financial assistance for that service. We will also be able to apply the rebate to the bill, so it's very convenient for the customer. And lastly, renters will be eligible for this rebate as well. So understanding that a fee is hard, we're working very hard to keep this fee as low as possible, and the rate will be the lowest in the region. This slide does a good job of showing the actual cost people pay in other cities when they have to hire their own trash collection service. And from what we know, only a few local cities offer composting, such as Boulder and Longmont. It's really important to note that there are no cities or haulers that offer a discount program for low-income households, which we will. And this is a timeline for the program that we're in right now, if all goes according to plan. And that includes if City Council votes to approve this eventual proposal, then we will have the program up and running by the end of this year. But as you can imagine, there's plenty of work to do between now and then, and that's why these conversations like this one tonight are so important. And that's the end of the slides. But I think we've got plenty of time for discussion. We're ready for some questions and really interested to hear your ideas for how we can implement this program in a way that makes that works best for all of you. So I'm going to stop sharing and get us all back onto one screen. And hopefully that was not too much information all at once, but anyone have any questions?
Hey, I have a quick question. So just, I know that we already went through the slides and stuff like that, but so it would be weekly recycling throughout the year, like just like the trash services currently, where we see that every single week, we would actually get recycling every single week as well.
Yes. Yep.
That seems like it would make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And something people have been talking about for a long time. And I'll open this up to Jessica. Do you have anything to add about that, or any folks from Dottie?
That was perfect, Tay. I'm speechless.
Sharona, hi.
Hi, Tay. Okay, I have a few questions. One, you know, when I've talked to other people about recycling, the word on the street is the recycling is not going to recycling, that it's actually going to the landfill, and that doesn't really motivate people to recycle. And I've heard it from multiple places. And, you know, I think with what had happened with China, you know, prohibiting our recycling to go over there now, that people are concerned there's not a system in place that's going to receive all that recycling. And so it'd be, what are your thoughts on that as to ensure people that it's worth the effort?
Absolutely. I'll take a first stab at this, or Jessica, would you like to answer this one actually as a recycling specific question?
I'm sure that you would say the same. I think that the first point that I like to make with this question is always that every city has different relationships with their recycling facilities and different end markets. And so although we're seeing a lot of articles out there that are sharing that information, and that maybe that is true for certain municipalities and certain companies, it's not necessarily true for Denver. And so what we know about our recycling facility where we send our materials is that the majority of what they process is kept domestically, really with only, I think, paper products still going to Southeast Asia. But they really prioritize local end markets. And then also, considering Denver's in the middle of the country, sending things overseas is not necessarily, you know, viable or the best option. So they prefer to keep things domestic. It also wouldn't make sense financially to not recycle if you could, because you make money off of it. So what would be the point of not?
Short answer, definitely, if the materials are going into our purple carts and they're materials that should be going in our purple carts in the first place, they are going to our facility and therefore getting recycled via these end markets. So yeah, you hear that news a lot, and it is very confusing in different parts of the country, but speaking from our experience and what we know about our program, yes, materials are getting recycled. And
well, just that we have a good relationship with our facility, and so we just regularly ask them for updates on each material and where they're going, and so we know that for a fact.
Okay. Also, I took the master composter course with Tay, and I know Brandy did, and I think Dawn did too, which was an excellent class, and 3-month course, and went to the landfill, went to A1 Organics. I mean, it was so educational. But the thing that kept farming is the apartment buildings not having access to recycling and to composting. And it seems like there's so many apartment buildings being constructed, or condos all over the city on a big scale. What is the city's plan to try to engage them to also be a part of this plan?
I'm really glad you brought that up, Sharona. I think that's a great question. The one thing that I will say, and others chime in if to add to this, that this program on the residential side of things is really foundational, and it allows the city to get good footing in terms of like getting a program that is offered across the board, so that we can later on carry out some of the recommendations in all of our other reports and things that we have, such as our solid waste master plan efforts that have called for policies to address exactly what you're talking about. And so this is kind of one of those things that we want to do first, and then start looking towards some of those bigger pieces of the pie.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tay, there's a couple questions going on in chat as well, but I also see that just because answering those. Zachary, I did see that you had your hand raised and you took it away. Did you want to unmute and ask your question, or was it covered already?
So I don't have a question. My name's Zach Hartaya. I'm the finance director for Dottie. I was just going to chime in on the recycling portion and where those materials go. Just for everyone's edification and knowledge, the recycling program yields a credit for the city and county of Denver, meaning when the market's good, our contract with Alpine Recycling ensures that we receive a credit for the materials processed. And as Jessica alluded to, we're constantly checking on how those materials are processed and how they move forward. As I said, there's a contract with Alpine Recycling that is public information and public record, along with our certified annual financial report, which will be produced and published for the public, I believe, in late March of this year, meaning you can actually physically go into that document and see the credit that we received in 2021 for the amount of tonnage that we processed for recycling through Alpine. And sorry for not having my camera on. My dog had a rough day at daycare and he needs a bath, and I'm working on that as we're kind of going through this. But thanks for letting me chime in.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight. The beauty of Zoom meetings. I love the ability to multitask.
There's also just answer Megan's question as well. So right now, the biggest impact to our timeline is the additional trucks that we need for weekly recycling and the drivers for them. So that's why our implementation part of the timeline is kind of just moving through the end of the year. Right now, we're predicting that we'll need that, all 2022 to ramp up for this program, and hoping. And we'll have more information on what that timeline looks like as we get closer.
I do have a quick question / comment. As someone who utilizes the current option to have compost, I'm pretty excited to see this shift to be available to the masses. And to springboard off of what Sharona was mentioning, that there is a lot of education that can go into master composting, but knowing that this might be a shift for some of our residents who don't already utilize home or city composting, and also knowing that this could potentially impact the recycling rate, knowing that we're going to divert more from garbage into recycling. Will there be education for the residents, especially for those who maybe don't utilize these services currently, just to make sure that stuff is getting put into the correct bins when it comes to it, now that they'll have 3 versus 2 or potentially even 1, still seeing as to how not everyone's using recycling. So curious on what the plan is with that.
Great question. Yeah, of course, education will be like absolutely foundational to increasing the number of people who are participating in the composting program. And so there will be extensive education that would arrive with materials, and then that would arrive with the green carts once delivered, and then ongoing touch points from there. And if Jessica might have some specifics to add to that, but 100% education will be very crucial.
I think the only thing that I would add to this, and sorry, I think my internet connection is also bad, so sorry. But so what if this is approved by City Council, there will be a number of things that we have to communicate to residents. So we're definitely just already preparing for that, such as the rebate program, you know, maybe ordering the appropriate trash cart in advance so that, you know, when you get your first invoice, you already have the trash cart that you want to be billed for. How to use our new billing system, and set up an account and get set up for auto pay or paperless billing. On top of, like Tay said, when the compost cart is going to be delivered, when does service start? So we'll be communicating all of those things with the property owners, the people who live at the physical service address, you know, trying to touch people as many times as possible, live and then afterwards, like Tay said.
And it's also a really good reminder that like now is also a great time to start composting. I think that's always true. So, you know, if folks are interested, there's plenty of information to get started now with the Denver Compost Program, backyard composting. Really, truly, there's lots of ways to better manage organic waste starting today.
Awesome. I am keeping my video off because for the same reason, I'm hoping that we just have a lot of participation tonight and therefore it's lagging. It's great. Brandy did put a comment in the chat about possibly the potential of saving money for those of us who already participate in compost. I believe, yeah, that it was going to be just under $1 savings is what I recall, but I'll let you all reference that. Awesome.
Yeah, Sharona.
Okay, so I have 2 more questions. One, I'm trying to be such a good consumer and be mindful in the plastic bag situation, in terms of, you know, I bring my own bags to the grocery store and stuff, but buying items that are in plastic bags, you know, at Sprouts or whatever, I still will recycle those and take them to a grocery store to be recycled. But it seems like, one, I know it's such a huge problem at the landfill, which we saw. Plastic bags are flying everywhere. We saw that it was a problem at the recycling center because they clog up the machines. And you know, that King Soopers and Sprouts is no longer recycling or taking, at least the ones that I went to, are no longer taking plastic bags. And the only place that is taking it from my experience so far, has been Safeway. And it's the smallest little container, you know, it's probably 4 feet high, and it's stuffed in there. You can tell there's a minimal amount of people who are actually even doing it. And so, you know, it's like from big salad bags or from bread bags and stuff. And so I'm just wondering if there is, in terms of trying to curb our waste, if there's any larger plan around that. And then also, you know, it seems like the producers really have a responsibility in producing their packaging that is going to be part of the solution, you know, and I don't know if that means, you know, that the packaging for our bread is plastic, you know, the plastic packaging for the bread is made out of some compostable materials that we could put in the compost instead of it being made out of fossil fuels. And so it just seems like such a huge problem. And I'm wondering if you all have any thoughts around that, if there's a vision, or if there's some programs out there that are trying to work with these individual companies. So.
Ooh, how much time do we have to answer?
I know. It's in the forefront of my mind all the time. So.
I love it. I'm just going to point to a few really exciting programs that I think will help address that. First, in case everyone is not aware, there's a new ordinance on the books as of July, the Bring Your Own Bag ordinance. You're probably aware of, with the fee on disposable bags at grocery stores. So that's really trying to curb some of the waste from the front end. The state is actually has a law on the books too that will expand some portions and variations of that statewide. And then Denver also just has a new skip the stuff ordinance that's trying to reduce single use plastic in the food service industry. And so there's lots of information online about that just launched in January. And then there's a lot of other things in the works around what we're talking about with extended producer responsibility. And I definitely encourage you to look into some of those online sources of you know, what's going on at the state level on that. But without getting into too much detail, there's some great stuff in the works to really prevent some of that waste in the first place. So
great,
exciting to share that. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
I'll go to the state website to see what those ordinances are, what they're working on then.
Or there's also state organizations like Recycle Colorado is a great resource that I know many of you are involved with, and they've got some information on that, on a few of those items listed there.
Cool.
That and the Denver website too.
Thank you.
It's a Graydon here. I might have missed it in the presentation, but when will fees be due? Is it going to be like an annual fee, quarterly, monthly?
Picking that right over to Jessica.
Hi. Yeah, this will be quarterly billing.
Awesome. I really appreciate all the conversation and questions and excitement around what opportunities and options and even future legislation possibly and state level resources. It really genuinely does sound like we are moving that way as a state. And so exciting to hear that Denver is at the forefront and has some options available considering what might happen in the future pending city council and what our neighbors have to say. But I really appreciate the insight and the knowledge that you all brought forward. I know that there was going to be questions about this and just some uncertainty. And I think that you all really have covered so much of it around billing,